I'm Bridget Custon. I'm an economic anthropologist at the Said Business School and the host of the third session of Intersectionality and Inclusion, where we have the absolute privilege to again revisit the topic of albinism and what it takes to build awareness, advocacy, and change from the ground up. I am here with Diandra Forrest, a world famous supermodel. You have been an advocate and an activist before there was Diet Prada calling out the fashion industry for its woke washing on Instagram. How can one tell the difference between a brand or a designer or some fashion house that's doing something really meaningful as opposed to just riding the latest trend, doing what they need to do to tick a box?
I say do your research. Look at the history of that brand and see how long has it been. Have they been really inclusive with who they're hiring and who they also have working behind the scenes? Because that's what's really important too. You don't want to just see people or brands have look like they're being inclusive, but then when you look at their boards, it's not really inclusive at all. They're not really hiring Black and brown people.
I think it's really powerful that your answer to the question was essentially, there's no shortcut. It does take some work, right? To separate out the performative activism versus the meaningful, real activism.
Yeah, it is. It's important to do that.
Models don't usually become spokespeople for global human rights causes. What led you down this path?
I always knew that I was going to be more than a model. I always loved fashion, but I knew I didn't see people like me in magazines and movies and just really shown in a beautiful light. And I knew I wanted to change that. So as I was modeling, I went to an exhibition and there were photos of people with albinism in Tanzania. And I saw there were people with albinism who were mutilated because of having that condition. And that was my first time hearing about that. I was about 19 and I just knew like, okay, my journey is going to be so much bigger than I've ever imagined, because there's a world of people with albinism who are really suffering, and I could not turn a blind eye to that. So it's really been my mission to support people with albinism who are struggling in that way, but also to spread awareness about the issues that people with albinism are going through. And it's a long journey, but it's a really important one.
An intersectional approach to inclusivity allows people to choose how they identify. How do you choose to identify and why?
A lot of people will look at me and the first thing they see is, oh, albino, or she has albinism. And yes, that is true, but that's not all I am. So it's important for me to say I'm a Black woman first, and I do have a condition that happens to be albinism.
On the range of issues that you're fighting for as an activist, where would this topic of self-identification lie? How important to you is that?
How do you move in the world if you don't really know who you are? I think it's so important for us to dig deep and find out how we identify ourselves, because that's really our foundation. That's who we are.
So what work does the fashion business have to do when it comes to meaningful inclusion?
The world is made up of so many different types of people from so many ethnic backgrounds to different body types, and we need to see that. It's not fair just to see a cookie cutter model. And I think the fashion industry heard that and took that and said, okay, we need to make change because people are going to stop buying. It's not fair. And they're doing it. It's been a slow process, but I think I'm so happy when I walk into these big brand stores now and I see real size people that look like me, people that look like the people in my neighborhood. It really brings me joy because it's important to have that representation.